Hey guys, so I'm back with my October reading wrap up. It feels like this month and this year has gone so quickly. I can't believe that I'm wrapping up October. I'm really sorry, I'm feeling a bit off today with my speech, so if it's all jumbled and everything, then please bear with me. It's just something that happens when I get really anxious, and I'm feeling a bit anxious at the moment, so hoping this is going to go okay. But yeah, I basically managed to read 6 books last month. I'm really pleased with it. I'm also really sorry about how dark it is in here. I've got so many lights on, but it's just winter and I can't do anything about it, but please bear with. So first up is Austerlitz by W.G. Sebald. This was my least favourite read of the month. I've given it 2 stars. And it was basically one long chapter in a book, which I really struggle with any kind of format like that. I need my chapters to break things up, and even really long chapters kind of drag a little bit for me. But yeah, this was one long chapter. It was all about a man who was kind of, I think he was separated from his parents in World War II and brought to England, and he goes back to his home country, which I think was Germany. Hard to remember, I just really detested it, and tried to find his parents, and it was all about this kind of like journey of finding out who he was. It was very kind of abstracted, there wasn't much emotion in it at all, and the only good thing about it was that the text was broken up by little pictures, so it meant that there was some kind of tiny break, but the pictures showed things like the landscapes of where he was, or maps of like train stations and things like that. But yeah, it's this journey of really finding out who he is, and he was given a new name when he came to England, and finding out his real name and things like that. So it was kind of a journey of self-discovery in a way. And then I followed this up with my favourite read of the month, which was An American Marriage by Tayari Jones, which is probably not how you pronounce that, so very sorry. This was shortlisted, and in fact I think it won the Women's Prize for Fiction this year. I'm trying to work my way through the shortlist, so I've read this and Circe and My Sister the Serial Killer. This, yeah, I've given it 5 stars. It was really good. It's basically a story of a husband and wife living in America, and they're a black couple, and basically after they get married, the husband is wrongly convicted of a crime he didn't commit. He's basically imprisoned for raping a white woman, and his wife knows he didn't do it because he was with her the whole night that the woman said it happened on, but there's nothing she can do, and then other than be a witness and say that he didn't do it, which none of the jury believed. It starts off pre-prison when they're together, and then during prison they send letters to each other, and it's partly all about his kind of experience in prison, his experience of the justice system as a black man who's potentially committed a crime on a white woman. He knows he's innocent, but obviously nobody believes him. And then his wife trying to live this life as a newlywed outside of a marriage, really, where she can only see him occasionally. It's very far for her to go and see him, and she really struggles with staying committed to the relationship. And if she should, they were having a few problems before he went into jail, but obviously she knows it's not his fault and he's having a really awful time. And yeah, it basically talks about how they struggle in this relationship that's so distanced. I really like the difference between like normal speech narrative and the letters. I thought it was really well done, and it was very raw and emotive, but at the same time managing to have these like really well written passages. So yeah, I think the author's really skilled. I want to read her other books, and I would really recommend this. Right, so on to actual physical books. The first one I read was Love and Other Gods by Michael Nangla. I was sent this by the publisher, but not to talk about on here, just to talk about on Instagram and my blog. This really wasn't my favourite book ever. I've given it 3 stars because it was okay, but it's basically, it was very heavy for such a short book. I think it was just over 200 pages. And it was all about the author's own kind of journey through psychosis, so he really struggles. He comes from quite a traditional Indian family, and there's a lot of pressure on him when he goes to university. he studies philosophy and then does a master's in it, and then he begins to really struggle with his mental health. He kind of sees and hears things that aren't there, and he really kind of has this big breakdown and ends up in hospital, and his family don't really know how to deal with it. And then again, kind of as his life progresses, he has like repeated breakdowns. I found it quite hard to kind of not feel distanced from the author, because I felt like obviously there were massive swathes of really raw text that I imagine would have been so hard to write, and I really admire him for writing it, because I think anybody that struggled with mental health issues, if he's kind of written down some of his darkest thoughts and darkest parts and these really kind of deep psychoses, and yeah, I really have a lot of respect for him for doing that, because I think it makes you so vulnerable, but then it's mixed into that these really heavy kind of philosophical ideas which have really actually made his mental health worse, it seems, in that there's a lot of questioning. And I did philosophy as an A-level, and sometimes, yeah, I found it quite difficult. He talks about this idea of nothing, like what is anything, and it's like loads of these big philosophical questions that make you feel really insignificant, but also really introspective on like what is anything? Is it just my experience of the world? Is that all that there is for me? And I felt like I could understand some bits because I have this like slight philosophical background, but a lot of it went so far over my head, and I think it was really kind of a tough read for anybody that doesn't know much about philosophy or like really kind of like niche philosophical ideas. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it maybe needed to be one or the other, either this really raw text or this philosophy side of a book. But I understand that they're both big parts of the author's personality. I just found it really kind of jarring to switch between the two. And then I read Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan, which was very different. It tells the story of Rachel Chu and her boyfriend Nicholas Young. Rachel comes from a single parent family in America. I think they were in LA and then New York. Her mum's always had to work really hard to give Rachel anything, and she comes from a not poor but not massively well-off family, and she doesn't know that her boyfriend's family is one of the richest in Singapore until he invites her to go and stay with them over summer. They're students at the time, so, or I think, no, they're both working in a university, so they have summers off. So she goes over completely unaware that there is this massive, like, unbelievably rich family waiting for her, and it kind of, it's very funny and it's very like insightful. I really liked this whole idea that a lot of the drama comes from other women kind of like trying to get this eligible and desirable bachelor, and kind of mocking Rachel for not really knowing how good she's got it by bagging this guy who's really rich, and they don't really believe that she doesn't know. But yeah, there's like loads of family members in it. It's a big like heavy family based book, which I really love, and I really want to read the second and third in the series. I think I gave it 4 stars. There were a few bits that I thought, there are a few instances of language that I didn't think should be used. I've had this in another book recently, but there were lots of bits of language, like I think there were bits of different dialects of Chinese, as well as I think there were a couple of bits of Korean. There were lots of like different Asian languages integrated into the text, and a definition of what was being said at the bottom of the page. But one of the words was translated into English as a really offensive term for somebody that's gay, and I just don't think there was any need to include, like, the English word is the word that was offensive, and that was used as this definition. And yeah, it kind of just made me a bit like, it wasn't necessary, and this book wasn't published that long ago, and I'm pretty sure we've all agreed that that's not a word that we should use. yeah, it just made me feel a bit like icky about the book. But other than that, it was really, really good. And then I read The Girl in the Ice by Robert Bryndza. That's probably not how you pronounce it. I've given this 4 stars as well. This was a crime thriller. I tried to get into kind of some spooky-ish books for Halloween. And this is a book all about a young socialite who comes from a very rich family who turns up dead, and a female cop or like police investigator, however you want to call it, detective, Erica Foster, who basically is working on the case, trying to find out what happens, but as she does, she dredges up some kind of negative things about the girl's past to do with drugs, or like the possibility of her being paid for sex in some way, and the family really want it covered up completely, so she's taken off the case, and it's kind of like her illicitly trying to solve the case without anybody knowing, because she's been kicked off and she's the only one that's looking into what really happened rather than what the family wants them to see. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. There was like a few bits that I guessed who did it quite early on, and then was convinced it wasn't them, and it turned out to be them, so it's just a bit disappointing that I guessed it early on, but I don't know, it was kind of sort of obvious. But it was really well written, so I've given it 4 stars still. It was just that loss of element of surprise that lost it 1. Finally is Trigger Warning by Neil Gaiman, and is other short fictions and disturbances. I haven't read any of his stuff before, but I've watched Good Omens on Amazon Prime and I really loved it, so I've wanted to for a while. He really kind of shocked me at how much I really like the short stories. I would say that these would be fine for kids to read as well, but some of the stories are longer than others, obviously. Some of them are a couple of pages, some are like 30 pages, but there's also lots of little poems in there, and the only theme that they have running through is that they're kind of nightmarish in some way, or spooky, or creepy, and it was just like the perfect read for around Halloween. I'm not a big short story fan, so I was quite surprised that I liked it. I wasn't a massive fan of the poetry in it, but it was actually quite nice in breaking up the short stories, because sometimes it can feel like I feel like I'm not getting anywhere in a book that has so many little stories in it, because I read like 5 or 6 and I'm only 30 pages through the book or something, and I just feel like I'm never going to finish. So I don't know, the poems kind of broke it up for me and made it a lot less repetitive. He uses lots of different forms in the stories, and some of them I really, really liked, some of them I didn't, but then that's always going to happen with something like this. So I've given this 4 stars, I think. Yeah, 4 stars. So I enjoyed it quite a bit. And I'm really excited to read some of his other work now. I've got The Ocean at the End of the Lane on my shelves ready to give a go at some point. And that's it. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Again, I'm really sorry that it's been a bit with my speech because my anxiety being bad, but thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.